Howdy y'all, this is AR Cavley. Welcome back to my channel. And now we're going to start our 2300 campaign, or at least try to. I'd hope to get get a video out before now, but it's been busy. And I may have to interrupt this video. I think my wife has designs on me. I don't really want to go to the grocery store, but sometimes you gotta do what you gotta do. Anyway. So where we left off last time is we made our first character, and I made 3 more. I did not go through I didn't record it to make everyone watch the boring math, all the maths and choices and everything. But I will take a moment to quickly introduce the characters. All right, so our one character is Gordon Wolford. He's an American. He was a space military, a couple tours of that, and he's a pretty good guy. He's the character that got all the good roles. He has a lot of high roles, and so he's kind of a badass, but he decided that it was time to get out. His home world's Vega, the outpost, and from there he decided that he would join the Space Marines, or the U.S. Marines. Now, even though he's a Marine, I built him as a space military since he would be more the learning how to fight in zero G, maybe however they deploy or send their detachments onto ships. He's not really a ground pounder. I mean, he knows how to do that stuff, but his main training was as a space crewman. And coming up with his personality and motivations, he's confident, kind, and he's ambitious, maybe a little manipulative sometimes, and he desires positions of authority. So he's a go-getter. He's a go-getter. Our next character is Stefan Kellerman, which I believe he was the first one we made. So, but anyway, he's German from the frontier world of Vogelheim, and he's a scout and is a fairly well trained in spaceship piloting operations, that kind of thing. Yeah, he's from Vogelheim, and he's introspective, sympathetic, but he's not afraid to use violence to get what he wants sometimes. And the guy who rolled pretty bad, but I decided to keep him anyway because sometimes you can have low stats, and this guy actually turned out to have the most points as far as turning points just because of the way it went. But he has a low strength, and he's I think he's an ectomorph. No, he's normal. Oh, he's normal, but he also is from a zero G colony, so his strength is even lower at normal G. His eloquence was 4, and his education is only 3. Now that's after I actually re-rolled education and got worse. But his determination, well, actually, it was a little better, but his determination is low, so it brought his education back down to 3. Now, since he's from the outpost of Red Speck, with that kind of low eloquence and education, I picture him as having had maybe some kind of severe learning disability, or perhaps, or maybe both. He was not raised very well. Maybe he was orphaned and kind of left in the system where he wasn't given the kind of education he needed. However, after his time there, he became a colonist on Ellis. I thought, simple man, simple job, and he excelled pretty well there, and he's kind of a master of survival. So he walked around working there, doing the odd jobs, helping out in I think Ellis is a desert world, so he probably knows a lot about that kind of terrain, I mean. But he's cheerful, and he brags a lot to sound important. So he grew up and he feels the weight of his reputation as being a simpleton. So he tends to brag a lot, not out of being self-centered or anything, but he still, I think I read it as being a need to let people know that he's not helpless, that he's not you know that he's not retarded or whatever. And his other motivation was that he was very wise, and he is also actually the oldest of them all, coming in at 38. Um, but he's old and wise, and he gives good advice. So from his many years living in the outback, I kind of picture he has kind of this this folksy wisdom where he has like the country sayings or whatever. You know, well, my pappy always said that life is like a Danubian slime devil, or something like that. Um, so, and it's kind of interesting that he, having the very low eloquence and education, would be the wise guy. So his school is the school of hard knocks. And our final character is Xiao Mei. She is a Manchurian scientist. She spent her first tour as an academic, where she became a kind of an expert on biology. She decided that she was bored of the laboratory, and she went into being a contact team member. So she also did not roll super great. I mean, very average. She didn't roll poorly, but her education was very high. Right now, she has an education of 18, with a little bonus from her determination. So that's why I decided to make her academic. That she spent a lot of time in school doing those things, and she's biology is her main thing. But when she became into the contact team, she really picked up some linguistics and anthropology and psychology skills. So she's kind of interesting. She is from the colony, the Manchurian colony on Bernard Star, which is a low G planet. Now she is an ectomorph, so she's pretty light, uh, pretty light and skinny, um, but she's enthusiastic, decisive, and she's very ambitious towards academics. So I figure this is someone who she likes to have her stuff in the journals, get accredited for her research and things like that. Um, but her her second draw was Joker, and so she's insanely ambitious. Now I don't read this as like she's not going to go and kill her competitors, or some editor who doesn't let her into the magazine, probably, but that she will do insane things to achieve her ambition. So she might do something stupid like go running across the ice field towards the giant thresher maw, or or whatever, so that she can get a sample from it. Um, so that's an interesting thing with her. She's kind of um, not really a pacifist, but most of her, you know, even though she was on a contact team, um, she spent her time studying and whatnot. So she's smart, and she's pretty good with computers. And so she's kind of even though her intelligence is not super high either, her intelligence is straight average, but she's very educated. So she gets that. All right. And yeah, I was digging through some stuff, and I came across this other deck that I found, and it's the side quest decks for science fiction. Um, and it's kind of cool because each on one side it has a map, and on the other side it has like the quest, and it's written they're written in a pretty cool format, to where it gives you the basic idea how the PCs can get involved, and then the types of encounters and stuff they might have in it. So it's a very basic outline, but I think it's kind of cool. They got the maps on the back of the cards. Some of these they have a deck that's like science fantasy, Some of these are still a little more soap opera-ish than might feel normal in 2300. But some of them are easily, a lot of them, I'd say most of them are probably easily adaptable to be more hard sci-fi. All right. I've decided I think we're going to start our characters off on the Tricolors Shadow Adventure. This is an adventure. This came with the 2300, the Traveler 2300 box set. It wasn't in the 2300 AD. I see that they did remake it for one of the new Mongoose versions. So this is what we're going to run them through first. And we're going to use Roll20 here for some mapping. Now I have like everything pretty much that I would ever need for this, so I don't, like I said, I don't really have any plan on using the new Traveler 2300 stuff. But when I found out that they had maps for the planets in the Colonial Atlas, well, I think the maps are in the main book, I did decide to go ahead and purchase the PDF so I could use the maps. That was always one thing that I thought was kind of disappointing, was that the old Colonial Atlas, there were very few world maps. Some of the adventure modules had them, and in fact, this one has a very basic map of Beta Canum Venaticorum, or Beta Canum 4. But I saw one of the maps, I think, browsing somewhere, whoops, and thought, you know what, I'll go ahead and buy this PDF so I can use these. And they're pretty nice. You know, granted, the I think the idea in the original was that they would give you enough, and then you would use the mapping system that 2300 AD has, that you would use it to kind of make your own maps for all the colonies. In fact, in this, it has a little section that says Beta Canum Venaticorum can be mapped using map triangles, 8 hexes to a side. The geodesic map of the planet gives a rough indication of land masses, and other things can be mapped as necessary. It's not necessary to have the world fully mapped before the adventure begins. It is a good idea, however, to have the supply of blank terrain forms available for mapping as the need arises. So I think the idea in this was that they give you a very basic shape of the continents, and that this would that you would use that to fill in the blanks. So since we are starting off the campaign on BC4, I also also did a read through of Beanstalk, which is all about that planet. It has a lot of details, and actually has the Rebco SAR, because in this you're supposed to be working for Rebco SAR. In this one, it actually mentions the NPC who's working at who's the contact for the players at Rebco SAR. So we're going to go ahead and start off with there. As far as how everyone met, their backgrounds are very disparate. I think possibly maybe the scout, Stefan, might have had some kind of contact with Xiao Mei, who was in the contact team. But I think just in general, we're just going to leave it as out of the many other people that are there on the planet, they have applied for work with Rebco SAR. And the powers that be, the contact, what's his name? Nigel Strawn, he's the Rebco SAR executive that hired them in the basic um, hiring process. He got this mission request for doing a survey of this valley in the southern part of the French continent. And looking through, he kind of picked the people. Um, we've got she's a contact team, so obviously she's a go. Um, Stefan Kellerman, he has a lot of piloting skills, and was a scout, even though he wasn't a contact member, so he got on there. And Horace, I forgot if I mentioned Horace. Horace, his name anyway, Horace Mares. Um, he is a survival expert, and so that kind of stuff, obviously, survival skills be helpful for an extended survey mission where they're going to be away from things. And then Zhao Mei, of course, she is a biology expert, so she's great for doing the biological survey, agriculture, things like that. Oh, and Stefan also is trained in geology. So basically, he decided he pulled these four together, and he doesn't even actually, because he's stationed at the Rebco headquarters at Adrian, on the southern continent, and he's going to actually meet them in Premier, near the Beanstalk. Premier is the capital of the French continent, and also holds one of two, I think actually the first, human beanstalk. So he's going to meet them there, works out their arrangements, the payments, and it's 2,000 per month, and I think 1,000 bonus for accepting or for finishing the job. They are provided with 2 hover jeeps, a fuel station, and cameras. Part of the survey that they want, not only the location and biological surveys, but wants things filmed. Sensors, they have a package of sensors for doing all sorts of meteorological, geological, those kind of things. And then obviously camping equipment, enough for camping equipment and rations, because the biology on Beta Canum 4 is not digestible by humans. There's a talk about left-handed and right-handed amino acids, and I don't really know much about that, although I have seen 2,300 discussions that are talking about how valid that is or not. I don't know. I'm just going to use what's in the book. So anyway, they either have to get earth animals, earth flora and fauna, or hybrid that they can eat, or they just have to eat the rations. But they are given camping equipment for them to live on the incoming 2 months. So, and then each person is also given an extra 500 for gun allowance. It's a survey equipment, so no one's going to go out and get an arsenal. A couple of them already have some weapons. Stefan has a laser rifle, F-19, and Horace, the survivalist, the idiot savant. Well, actually, he's not even really. He's just as smart as the academic. He just didn't go to school, intelligent wise. But he's got a pistol that he carried with him for wildlife or whatever. The Marine, who is a warrant officer 1, Gordon Wolford. He has an old M2 assault rifle from the good old days, back when he was in. And I mean, he was only in for about 13 years. He might actually still be in. I think that's a possibility. Either he's at the I don't know if he's on maybe a detached duty. It would seem a little odd for him to be active duty pulling civilian jobs unless, he was on some kind of special assignment. So I think it's probably more likely that he's separated, but he's on, well, at least what we called it when I was in the Navy, called or our military was active reserve. So you weren't expected to do anything, but you could be called up until the end of your active reserve time. You were not on active duty, but if you got called up, and if you got called up, then it was probably too late at that point anyway. So none of them are, this is a survey. There are some hostile animals on the planet and everything. Xiao Mei, she she has a sonic stunner because she just uses it against animals. That's all. She doesn't really care to go around shooting these life forms on other planets she might be assigned to. So she has a stun pistol. Yeah. So as I was thinking about it, if you've seen my channel, you've seen I've done a couple of Hostile, which is another kind of retro tech Traveler / Cepheus system, and I had a lot of fun with those. I really like that system, but it's foundationally a horror system, a space horror system. So it focuses on a lot of the horror tropes, and in that you have people doing dumb things sometimes because it's expected to make the horror trope happen. Or there'll be a lot of discord, a lot of sniping and argument, and like like one of the new Star Trek series or whatever, where everyone's like, nah, 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 nah. But in more grown up expeditions, they have something that they call it's an expeditionary spirit, which basically means that you learn to forbear with people's habits that may irritate you or that you may not like, and then everyone acts like grown-ups and works through things without getting super drama, without getting ridiculous like their high school. So that's one thing I'm going to try to focus that. Yeah, there's going to be conflict because there always is, but it's not going to be like high school drama conflict. And the second thing, as I was rereading this, because it has been a long time, I'm not sure that the hook is quite strong enough, because it's based on, and we'll get there, but we'll get there through narration or whatever. But the premise is that this satellite will crash, and in order for anything else to happen, the players or the characters have to take this orange box out of the satellite, and then they get chased for having the orange box. So for me, I'm some surveyor or something and a satellite falls, I'm probably just going to leave it alone. I'll go look and everything. I'm not going to go digging through it, especially since it says that specifically that they don't know what it is, what the orange box is, but they just decide to take it, and that leads to this what's supposed to be a running gunfight across Beta Canum 4. But even if you did pick it up, and the first time that the authorities start shooting at you, or I can understand running or ducking or whatever, but they're going to say, oh, hey, the most likely thing, especially if they realize that they are authorities, they're going to say, all right, we give up. And the authorities are probably going to identify themselves at some point too, and they hand the thing over because they have no reason to keep it. So in this case, what I think is it's going to be a little more sinister because I don't even think it's anything the players should know, but the event, I'm going to say that the satellite is just secondary, and they're worried, the authorities are worried more about the first event, and someone is going to act to make sure even that any witnesses are taken care of. So it's not just like the police are chasing, you can surrender and then the adventure's over. I'm going to make it a little more sinister in the background because I think it kind of needs that in order for the rest of the plot to really work. But anyway, I just thought I'd throw that out there because it was just something as I was reading the adventure. I know for myself, and I know sometimes it bothers. Well, I don't know if it bothers, but sometimes it comes into play that in the group I'm playing, my GM will present something, and if my characters he may not engage because doesn't really have a good reason to engage. Now, as a player, I do usually try to come up with a reason why they would engage, but something like this, it's like, am I going to go grabbing some French satellite and just drive off with it? Probably not. But maybe one of these guys will. That's one of those things we'll leave to the oracles, to the oracle deck. All right, so finally, after all this time, we're now going to start the Tricolor Shadow. So, Beta Cannon 4 is a very Earth-like in the gravity and with a lot of vegetation and life. And so they're enjoying, actually, for the first week, it's very nice. They make their way down, and they're going to be working on that hex, and then this one that is split up. So those are the hexes that they've been sent to investigate while they're doing this valley. Let's see. It's a little hard to pick out where the valley is, but we're gonna use those 3 hexes, or they may just find something really interesting. Who knows? So the first week we're just gonna make a general roll for surveying. Surveying, we're just going to use the let's see who would have the best. I'll have them do the first. We'll set up sensors, and we'll have Xiaomei make her biology roll as she starts to look at life forms and things like that. All right, 9. So very good. It's almost a perfect roll. She's done this before. She is extremely comfortable, and she knows what's going on. So they're setting up a camp, and they're taking their because they have hovercraft, there's certain areas that they can't take the hovercraft to. So if they're going to investigate like a large forest or something, and they really have to find a smaller camp, set up a smaller camp or forward observation post or something, and then walk around and do their biomonitoring and geological monitoring, everything else. So she gets that working up pretty well. Do they find one of these interesting things that it talks about here? I'm going to say it's even. So yes, using my using my little card, even odds, it says yes. So they do find one of these interesting sites. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we'll divide by 2. All right. All right, so they have discovered, they spend a day looking at a murky swamp. They find a murky swamp populated with plants that emit poisonous gases. Um, so that's kind of interesting. They set up their sensors, and they're not dumb, and she understands how to do these things. But does anyone run across a threat? Does anything happen? Someone stumble into the wrong thing, maybe do pick a pretty flower like a dumbass in a movie would. Uh, because they are pros, I'm going to say that the odds are low. Bad. Okay, no. So no result. So no one does anything stupid the first week. They're doing that. Second week, okay, so even better. So by the second week, they have found a they found a pretty good rhythm. They're getting all the sensors set up. The sensors are logging a bunch of the life forms that are in this valley, and and of course, they're um, uh, taking videos and everything. Oh, and as a matter of fact, they've got more than that because um, Xiao Mei actually has a remote drone that she uses for her contact team stuff, and I think someone else had it. Was it the survivalist? Yeah, yeah. Horace Mares actually has. So they have two remote drones. They've got the sensors that Rebco provided, and they're really getting good mapping information. So they all have cameras. The drones have cameras. They're collecting all this data. Um, they're doing things right. Things are going well for them so far. Let's see. Do they discover anything interesting this week? Yes, they do. Okay, so they come across while they're opening or going into this somewhat open area of the valley, and they find herds of these strange armor-clad herbivores. And let's see, do I feel like making them out? They're herbivores, so probably not. But let's flip over to our director's guide. See if there is, because there's no stats for the critters. I don't think it discusses anything else about them, just that they're there. Um, let's go to our handy dandy. I'll say that, again, I love 2300s, planetary, world generation, all that stuff. I love it. I like narrative ones too, like say Starforged, where you roll and it just comes with like interesting details of planets and things like that. And I do, even though I don't, it's not my favorite game system, but I do like the planetary generation. Is great for narrative stuff, but there's also, it appeals to me that your planet is going to have at least consistent values as to whether the atmospheric pressure versus the size versus density, all that stuff. um, so maybe that's just me, but all right. Animal encounters, basically I'm just looking to see if there is a field here that's gonna uh they're herbivores. Okay, da, 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 da. All right. Yeah, nothing really for what I was looking for. I was just looking for like a role. Are they, aggressive or whatever? So I think in in this case, again, instead of, I'm just going to say, do they do they run in any trouble with these herbivores? I'm gonna say the chance is low again because they are, they're professionals. They've got drones. Um, there would not really be a need to get very close to them, but her, Zhao Mei's insanity is always always a possibility. All right, let's see. Low. All right, so likely odds are bad, so no. So no problems with the herbivores. And let's see if there is some kind of, see if there's a chance for a random complication. They've been 2 weeks out. Um, see if there's any chance for some kind of, maybe some personal conflict. Um, at this point, I'm still going to give it bad odds because they are, they are professionals, and most of them have pleasant type personalities. So, all right, bad. All right, so no. All right, week 3, they're going to start working on a different area, kind of doing the same thing. Okay, so 4. All right, so running the basic stuff. They do the same thing. They gather up their sensors, um, plant them in another area. We'll say maybe they head over there. It says 3 hexes. Let's see. And according to this, each hex is 1057 or 1075 kilometers. So they've been working their way over there, traveling, I guess, as they're doing their stuff. And so now they're in this other hex. They've been traveling, 1,000 miles. Not too much, for these guys in their songbird like hovercraft. They set up, they don't find as much the basic information, the surveying and the sampling and videoing. um, everything, those kind of things are pretty easy. I'm mostly rolling to see if, they do a really great job, maybe glean something extra. um, I'm gonna say it's bad odds that they find anything new or interesting this week. All right, no. So, nope. So it's just a week of boredom, and now the 4th week as they go on. Oh, 2, so not great. So we'll say that they find another area that they're looking at, but they have a sensor issue. One of the sensors goes down. Who is going to try to fix that? I'm going to say that's going to be electronics. One of these guys is pretty good at electronics, I think. Now that's computer. Got mechanical. Okay, so Stefan has electronics of 1. She's got Gordon has electronic 0. Jamais has electronics of 1. So we'll go ahead and we'll let Stefan roll. I'm gonna say to fix that, it's gonna be routine. So 6 or better. All right, so he fixes that, no problem. He nails it. He knows exactly what's wrong with it. Yeah, back when we were working with a team and Dunkelheim or whatever, we had this exact same thing happen with this model. So I'll try to spare any over the top accents. But so he's able to get that, and they continue on. All right. Do they find anything interesting? Oh, yes. So some of these will have like a exclamation point, so it's like a yes, interesting, like a very yes, interesting. All right, yeah, let's see. So we do have. I think I'm more comfortable rolling dice, rolling like the six-sided dice on Oracle kind of thing. So I may go back to doing that after a while. I just want to try to use these cards for a bit. Oops, wrong book. All right, so what does he find? What do they find? What do they find? All right, so while they're out there, they come across, they find a herd of what look to be domesticated cattle. These are earth cattle that have been modified to be able to live, but it's off out in the middle of the wilderness in this part of the valley. And as they continue to look around, curious at these because these are definitely not they're not the native types. They also happen to notice that there are other signs of civilization, an outbuilding here, maybe a solar powered well or something for the cattle. They find these farm equipment, and after a while, when they're just kind of poking around and filming, a an old man dressed in sort of simple farmer type clothes, uh, futuristic overalls, whatever those might look like. He approaches, and it just says the old man, doesn't even give him a name. All right. Well, let's see. Um, come up with a name for him real quick. We'll use one of my favorite sites here, fantasynamegenerators.com, but it also has um, a bunch of real world and historical names as well on there. Let me put this guy on my NPC sheet to keep track of the NPCs. Let's see. Which one of those looks kind of sticks out to me? Let's see. Definitely not Jean-Claude. Let's see. Phil. Phil sounds kind of like a chill farmer name, so I'll just go with the top one. Phil Lafay. That'd be LaFale. Lafay. I just say LaFale. Feet don't LaFale me now. All right. All right. We don't really need to know any of those other details at this point. We'll just note that he's the old man in the hills. BC4. All right. All right, so he's a friendly kind of feller. Uh he approaches them and they start talking. Let's see. Who's our good eloquence person? Let's see. Eh, Zhao Mei. Oh, you know what? I forgot. I forgot to write down her looks. Wrote everything else down. Guess I forgot. Let's see. Four. Yeah, she's good looking. But she also has well, she has a high eloquence, and she also, because of all of her other stuff, she speaks Manchurian, England, French, Mandarin, Russian, and Spanish. So she's uh, our translator type person. Even though a lot of the computer chips and stuff can do the auto translation. All right, so Phil introduces himself, and as they get to talking, eloquent. Okay, so um, she opens up. She's very nice, very professional. Like I said, these are normal working people, so they do that. They talk to people without getting crazy. And he's not crazy. He's independent. He's been living out here for about 20 years, and he's happy. He speaks proudly of his farm, and he talks about this thing he built over here and that thing he built over there. And um, some some time ago, Beta Canum Ventricorum historically had a blight that really um damaged a lot of the crops across all the continents. And so ever since then, they're still recovering a little bit from that. Um, that blight was overcome by the pentapods, who have uh, a little enclave on the planet, not too far from where we're at. I don't think we'll head that way though. So, I think that might be an interesting. If they do decide they need to flee, that might be an interesting choice. All right, so they hit it off, and Phil, he's more than happy to, because he's familiar with this area. He's more than happy to show them different landmarks and sites that are in the area that are of interest. Um, and one of those things he shows is a place closer to the mountains. I'm just going to give them this one since they have a guide that has some weird geological formations, spires, natural bridges, deep pits, things like that. Um, I'll give what's his face a not Stefan. Oh yeah, Stefan. He has geology one. Um, all right, so he marks and records, but he doesn't come up with anything that's like super interesting about them. But they record, they send the drones, they take their geological and life things, and they basically spend the next week with Phil in his farm, using it as a base camp, and he helps show them all these shortcuts, and says that he's uh, happy to meet your acquaintance, and when they decide it's time to move on to the next area they're supposed to survey, um, he sends them packing with some fresh BC4 range fed beef, and which they have been enjoying already as they're staying with him, and a nice break from the camp rations that they've been eating. Let's see. However, does something happen? Does something interesting or strange happen while they're visiting him, or while they're on? I'm going to say the chances are bad. Okay, yeah. So no, nothing happens. It's just a fine place, and this is a kind of even though it's it's one of the only two planets that have space elevators, and it has a pretty booming economy, and is responsible for a lot of the agriculture that gets shipped down the rest of the French arm. Not much going on here, so it's not a super dangerous place or anything. No Wendigo monsters or anything like that. So they head on, and their next spot, make their way down to this hex, which is of course split by the um, geodesic shape there. All right. So so they spend a week or two going through that area, setting up, doing all that, doing all those things. Um, Does anything interesting happen? I'm gonna say maybe there's an even chance. Nope. All right. Still no. So it's just again just a regular survey mission. All right. So next week they go perfect. Xiao Mei and Stefan are, they're really in the groove. They're doing all their contact team. Um, I'm going to give survival role to Horace here as oh, okay. So he's really getting the hang of it. He's really learning a lot about the type of survival, because of course every type of biome and terrain kind of has its own flavor of survival skills, and um, he's really picked that up. He rolled a 10, so he's doing great. So which will come in handy maybe later on. It'll just be something to I'll keep in my head that he's really picked up a lot about don't wipe your backside with this leaf, and that kind of stuff. Um, and then now they've done that, we're going to move on to the next part. So as that, oh, let me see. I think they have one of these. Let's see. Oh, here we go. There, there we go. All right, so we have towards the end of the survey of the valley, the group sees a streak of fire reaching down to the valley some distance away. The phenomenon is recognizable as a lander. So we have a contact team member and the scout. Both familiar with that kind of stuff, and the Marine. So they recognize the streak as a lander. It doesn't explode or fade out like a meteorite would. So it goes, and it definitely lands somewhere in the valley. Now it's a big valley, so it could be hundreds of miles away, and they could see that streak for a long time. And they do decide though that they're not expecting it. So Zhao Mei, especially as someone who's on a contact team, uh, she feels that the chances are that it could be someone who is in trouble, like an emergency landing, because there's no reason for a normal person to land here. There's not even much of a reason for someone more nefarious like a smuggler or pirate to land there. So she suggests doing that, going to see if everyone's okay, and of course let's see, one of these guys is a little greedy. Well, maybe not greedy, but ambitious. Um, I'll say it's Stefan. He's somewhat uh, earnings oriented, so he says, and there might be a finder's fee for whatever's there. All right, so this is kind of the first big departure from the norm. So I'm going to draw a card. I'm going to see if there's excuse me, is there any kind of personal conflict uh, between the two? I'm going to give it a low chance, but we'll see. I'm going to say there's a chance that maybe Horace especially um, is maybe he doesn't want to go look, but is there a chance that there's some kind of personnel conflict? No. All right. So everyone pretty much agrees, and they pack up and they start heading away. Let's see. So So they're in the valley. All right, so I'm going to say it is in another hex, so it's probably going to take them it's going to take them at least a day to get there. They have a pretty good idea of where it landed just from, taking readings and everything. Um, let's see. Oh, I guess I could let's use a little deviation table here. All right, which direction? 8. All right, so that is up north. So that's straight, pretty much straight north. So they go speeding off. You know what? I think since they are trying to make some time, let's see if there are any. Let's see. These are hovercraft, hover vehicle 1. Oh, does anyone else have hover vehicle at anything? Oh, nope. All right, so Zhao Mei is the only one that has any skill with it. So, um, I'm just gonna have a roll to see if anything happens. She obviously, even she's not like super great with it, and they are, trying to get there at the hope of rescuing somebody, but we'll give it a roll. Oh, all right. So what we're gonna have is since they were rushing and since they're not very good, I was kind of going on the idea that she would kind of lead the way, and then the other person, whoever was driving, we'll say the Marine, Gordon, he was driving the other one. He has as good a skill as anybody else. Um, that they would follow. But that one is a roll, and because they were kind of rushing it, and they're in um, rough wilderness, I'm going to say that's going to be a 3 die 6 on their failure to see what happens using our failure table. All right, 10. Okay, so that's check determination. Um, okay, let's see. So I'll give her a check on her determination to see if. Actually, I'll give it a check on his determination, Gordon's, since we'll say that he's probably the one that had the issue trying to keep up. Um, he knows how to drive other vehicles, including a combat walker, but that is not a hover vehicle. So I'll give him a determination roll. All right, so he's good to go. Um, so they're not going to get there as fast as they wanted to. Um, he's willing to keep driving and try to go crazy, but he barely avoided um, wiping out his hover vehicle trying to follow her along. He knows how to drive ground vehicles, so he tried to take a turn a little too fast, and it slid, floating more like a hovercraft than a ground vehicle like he's used to driving, and he almost tipped it over and almost caused a lot of damage. So fortunately, that mishap was not critical, but it does take them time, and as they're still probably about half a day away, they see the distinctive streak of fire and uh, fuel as the lander from the area that they were tracking lifts back up and curves and disappears into nothing. They were not even with the magnifier and the far seers that a couple of them have. They're not able to make out a lot of detail on the type of craft. So So but they do get there. They find where it left pretty easy because even for a long time, the trail of smoke kind of points to where it was going, and they had a good idea anyway. They do have to spend some time getting around through a larger forest, and then they let's see. I think this landed in a clearing. It is a clearing. Let's see. All right. Yeah, so I'm going to say, let's see, can they get to the clearing or do they have to park the vehicles? So I'm going to say it's even. Do they have to park the vehicles? Yes. All right. So wherever it landed, they do have some maps, and they probably, they may have even mapped this area, um, but they know that they can't really get to that area with the vehicles, so they find a good place. They button up the vehicles. Maybe they set the fuel generator to run, to start making fuel, because they have had to refuel several times over the course that they've been out here. And then they hoof it. So they strap what they can on their back, med kits, and just in case, people are bringing their firearms. Um, and they come to the clearing, and they can tell for sure that this is where it came from, because there's a big area of scorched earth, and they're going to go ahead and investigate. We're at an hour on this video, which is actually a little bit long for what I prefer to do, but so we're going to call it there, and then next time we'll start off with them investigating the clearing to see what they can find. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed it. I'm having fun myself, as I do always when I'm running a solo campaign, so I hope you enjoyed it too, and happy gaming.